They really liked my interviews with Phil Ivey.
Oh yeah, those are great. Because that's what you would do to him. You like, see, you would.
He called me
What's
disarming.
Like, so Phil Ivey, he tries to be like, yeah, well, I'm just gonna try to play my best and like, see, I got the chip lead right now. I'm just gonna focus and
so
then
what are you, brain dead?
And you're like, what? No, you said, what do you have, brain damage? You said brain damage. Do you have brain damage? And then he starts laughing, and then you're like, what is on your shirt? What is this?
He's like, it's water. What's on your shirt?
What is it? What do you think it is? And he's like, I don't know what it is with you, right? And you're like, so then he just gets jokey and stuff.
Yeah, and Jamie was like, it's not many people do that. It's disarming for people.
Yes.
When you do that, because they have to respond.
You were always really good at, when you got these people in the interviews, like, especially nerdy poker players.
You have to make them respond.
Who like, they're going in thinking, okay, she's going to ask me questions about the poker tournament.
About the hand or whatever. Yeah.
But then like you take them on a question that's completely off the walls and then they go down a different, and it just makes for a much more fun and engaging interview.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear about what you did with Ace King again and again and again.
I'm opening top of range like Ace King EP, style, effective like 150.
I've even gone boring.
Yeah, you'll just stop and go.
In the middle
boring.
Of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because we've heard it.
Yeah, it's not.
No? It's not interesting
So you
anymore.
get it, anyway. Like I thought that sort of, their ideas for poker too makes a lot of sense. I think we're at that time where there's a place for these streams. People love them, right? But I do think that we're missing out really doing
the stories.
Kind of the old school, the packages and things like that away from the table.
He's gonna lick me.
Like I watched, I've been having on my TV lately, just the old World Series of Poker episodes.
I noticed.
Because I have 4 TVs, so I've been having them on and been on Poker Go. And I just see this like Eric Lindgren doing the golf bet. See me and Eric make this side bet where we get crushed. I see some crazy stuff with Ivy, all the old school, it was just so much more engaging, like frankly, than watching it now. Like it's just completely different.
I can't watch it like I used to.
I don't enjoy as I'm a poker player, right? But I don't.
Are you?
I really don't want to watch. I don't want to watch 8 hours of a stream. I don't.
No,
I can't. It's boring
I
to me.
will watch 8 hours of a stream if you're on it.
I would much rather do, and I'll give some shout out to Matt Morantz and
I watch all the streams if you're on them.
What they did with the World Series of Poker, and we talked to PK about this, was every episode was an episode that had to have, and high stakes poker was like this too. It had to have a beginning where you set the stage for what's about to happen. Had to have the middle, and then it had the end. So the beginning is Sammy Farha and Tom Don like played a big pot last week. Are they going to tangle? There was heated, like this. So now you have the hero, the villain, whatever. You create the drama. Like I watched Sean Chacon and Mike Matiso going at it, like hardcore, penalty and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, but again, there was a show arc. So then they created it around that, and every part of it was engaging with the sidebars. There's less poker. Yeah. I get that. But
even the big game, we had stories.
I think I do think we really lost our eye on the ball and
God.
Okay, listen, I get it. We're living in a new world. People want instant gratification. They want to see stuff live. But if you look at, say, for example, the Game of Gold show, very popular that Gigi did because it was packaged. Nobody knew what was going on because everyone had to, be quiet.
Yeah.
But I don't think, again, if you love poker, you're super, super into it, great. But if you actually want to get spectators, how many people used to watch poker?
Why can't we have both?
You know how many people used to watch me play poker on TV that didn't even know what was going on?
Totally,
They're like, that's the guy with the mother who cooks for everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, look, he won. He's wearing a Maple Leaf shirt. They didn't know what was going on, but they were interested, right?
That's why people will still come up to you and be like, "Are you that guy?"
Yeah.
From back on the ESPN, but they don't know exactly.
Right. I guess the question is how sophisticated is the audience? And the audience now is very sophisticated because the audience that stayed really loves poker and watches.
But can we have sophistication and a story?
I think we need to also have a little bit more of the mainstream stuff.
But why can't we have both? Within the same show.
I'm not suggesting. Well, because the streams are the streams. The streams are live. It's there.
Everything's streaming.
I know, but you can still make shows that are packaged. The problem with say for example, the World Series, right? The main event. So you air it live, and now everyone's already seen it.
Well, you definitely want to see stories
but I'm saying you do package shows later, people already know what happened.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter before because we live in a different world, like social media and all that stuff. I did an interview this week too, and I want to talk about this question.
And I was waiting on that.
Okay. I have it in my phone because
I
don't think I've been in poker almost 30 years. I've never been asked a question quite like this.
This guy's going to be annoyed with you now.
Well, I'm not going to be mean. I'm just going to say.
I am.
Okay, I know you are, but that's fine. It's okay. So let me find it right here.
Not mean, but just,
No, okay.
He sounded smug.
I'm on this podcast. We're talking poker, right?
And it's a poker podcast.
Yeah. The first question he asks me is about my Tourette's, which is fine. I don't mind. Listen, I don't mind talking about anything. We're open, right? And so then this question, and I wrote it down because I wanted to get it sort of right. And he said, your new podcast, Mania, that you're doing with your wife, focuses somewhat on poker. But then there's a lot of other things that you get into. What I'm always interested in asking people in the poker world, for their audience have a lot of power. You have a lot of power too. There's a halo effects that come with knowing one thing very well. And he goes, and I would come to you to listen to your poker advice any day of the week. What I probably wouldn't find myself doing is coming to listen to you talk about psychological concepts simply because that's my training. This is an area where I'm an expert on. Yet, you spend a lot of your time talking about a lot of different things. And my question is not, do you have the right to? You obviously have the right to. And obviously, this is a long one, right? And obviously, people are listening to you. But do you ever take time to consider, am I using that power appropriately for the dissemination of this information? Since you're a poker player, you're not an expert on some of these other areas. So in the moment, like I'm getting what's there. But the first thing I do is I jump on, okay, first and foremost, this is not a poker podcast.
We've said it a million times.
We touch on poker, I'd say maybe 15% of the time, right? So that's not the main focus of the podcast.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what I got to is like, listen, this podcast, break it down. This is about you and I, our life experiences. It started out with we talk about you being bipolar.
That's why the name of the podcast is Mania.
Right. How that works for our relationship. How we deal with the ups and downs and the challenges.
And we don't give medical advice or any psychological advice.
And I agree with that part where it's like, we are not, but we don't do that. This isn't a place where we are either being condescending or telling people what they need to do with their life.
Just our experiences.
Because he had a follow-up and he's like, I noticed that you recommended, like, for example, the 4 Agreements. And I'm like, yeah.
That's a book.
It's a good book. Yeah. It was written by, an expert in the field and it was recommended to be by an expert in the field. And like, so what? Like, do you think that I'm not qualified to
recommend a book?
Right. So I handled it well. Like I didn't.
Oh, you were really good.
But you know what I could have done? Like I thought about this later.
I did. I already know what I could have done.
I could have bodied him hard. I could have bodied him.
Yeah.
You know what bodied means, right?
Yeah, like
it's like a battle rap term. Just body him. Just like bury him. Because what I could have said was this. I could have said, well, frankly, my career, my entire empire, if you will, has been built on psychological concepts because poker is predominantly a psychological game. And what I would do is say someone like you with very limited information, I would sort of take how you phrase that question and I would dig deeper into where that comes from. Like the arrogance of the question,
it's very
masking sort of a insecurity that lives under there. And what I would do if I played poker against you, most likely, is use that to my advantage and play to your ego and use that against you. So while, and this is what another sidebar importance thing is like this, being an expert in something doesn't mean like when I play poker, I listen to people that are not as good as me sometimes because I'm like, that's interesting. Because you can always learn something from somebody no matter what. Right. Yeah. So, and then I said, well, we're experts on this podcast because it's our lives.
It's our lives. It's just our experiences. Yeah. But I also wanted to say that I respect that he has a PhD in psychology. That's huge in neuropsychology. Are you fucking kidding me? That's a really hard thing to do. I respect it. But what he was saying is like that we were giving some sort of advice that we shouldn't be giving. And that's not true.
No, I said, and my follow-up, I said, listen, I share, and this is normal. Like I share some of the things that have worked for me in my life. Whether, that works for you or not, I'm not suggesting that it will, but like sometimes you take nuggets from people and they do have an impact, you know? Like I mentioned the ice bath thing. I hear everyone I know that I follow that talking about the ice baths, and I know it's a good thing. I just haven't got into it, but you take these little bits. You don't have to though. Like I said, he's like, why should people listen to you? I'm like, they don't have to. I'm not your therapist.
Why are you on a poker podcast?
Well, he's a poker player,
Oh, but I mean, that's not his thing though, right? He kept saying his expertise is psychology.
But I didn't get into this, but the truth is, it is my expertise.
Yeah.
Literally throughout my career, one of the biggest assets that has set me apart and made me succeed is psychological warfare. It is planting seeds. It is basing information based on very limited information. And I learned this, frankly, when I did Choice Center as well, because I did some coaching there too, and I was pretty good at it. Because essentially what you learn to do, like a therapist would, is listen to what's underneath the conversation. Okay, what are they saying, but what's really underneath it? You know what I mean? Like, and then, you're sort of hearing underneath. You're not necessarily even addressing it. You're not acknowledging it. You're just kind of making a mental note. Like I'm sure when you do therapy or whatever, they
don't ever tell you what
she's taking notes. She's like, she said this. I'm hearing this. Like I remember one guy. I'll give you an example. one guy I was talking to, he was thinking about maybe doing the course. And I just asked him, I said, so, are you dating? You have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
He's like, and he was like so repulsed by, no, I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that. And what I heard under that was pain. I heard unworthiness. I heard underneath that he didn't believe that he was worthy of love. So immediately, I didn't say that to him. I didn't go, buddy, because you don't do that. I don't give unsolicited advice. But what I'm doing is I am profiling the person, right?
Even therapists don't do that.
That's exactly it. No, of course, as you shouldn't.
No.
But the skill in itself is hearing what's underneath what's being said. Yeah. Like Phil Hellmuth, right? And I love Phil Hellmuth. I really do. Okay.
His wife is a psychiatrist.
Which is awesome, right? So Phil, he always says he's not narcissistic, which is so funny to me.
I would like to ask her.
She might say no.
I would like to ask her.
Either way. But anyway, like Phil, we had this example where he's like, I told him, I said, Phil, why do you have to toot your own horn all the time?
Yeah.
And he said, well, because if I don't toot it, nobody else will.
Not true.
And I was like, actually, you look at somebody that's in your like Eric Seidel. Nobody gives him shit because he doesn't go around bragging all the time, right?
Yeah.
But Phil sort of has a blind spot to that. But it comes from, where does it come from? He's even actually been open.
Like insecurity?
And so he wants to be loved, man. He wants to be appreciated, he wants to be respected. And this guy, as he's speaking, I'm thinking, okay, he wants to feel important in what he does, and he is. He
wants to be respected for what he is.
But he's taking that position of like, I'm the authority on this.
Authority on this,
and, it comes off that way. Like what I was going to say is, one of the things too about psychological stuff is self-awareness. Like I could have said to him, if you phrase this question this way, how do you think that's going to come off to the audience? Right? What are they going to hear? The way you said it, you're just a poker player. Like
I think we both have a little psychological experience.
Well, I mean, you have a degree here as well.
Yeah, and I have bipolar, so both. I have a lot going on in here.
Yeah, but for those, we are not. This isn't a this isn't a self-help pod. We're not telling you what to do. We share our lives.
Yep.
But
how it works for us.
Yeah, and I don't mean to dump on the guy too much, but like I think if you listen back to the question,
it just sounded smug and like he was saying like, you know what? This is my expertise. You guys shouldn't be talking about this stuff.
Exactly.
That's how it sounded.
So like, I mean, he could ask the same question going, saying something effective this. It's like, you have a really like devoted audience and they care about what you say and what you think about. Does that ever like, does that ever make you feel like, whoa, I got to be careful of what advice I give? And I would have said, that's actually a good question and blah, blah, blah. But the way he did it, he phrased within the question, I'm an expert on this. You're not.
You're not. Yes.
Okay. Right off the bat. Which we could debate. I mean, he's studied an expert, but I've also spent 30 years studying some psychological concept, right?
I mean,
I'm not suggesting I would understand.
Has.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not saying I could debate him on the psychological concepts that he's an expert.
He's probably spent 15 years.
The term psychological concepts. You know what's a psychological concept? Reading people and understanding that. That's like poker 101, right? So yeah, I didn't want to dump, but I thought that was really, in the moment, I didn't. I didn't want to go down
you did
that road.
well. You didn't even sound irritated, actually. When you were answering the question to me, I didn't feel that.
Well, I think I started it by just saying this isn't I vehemently disagree with this being a poker podcast because it's really not.
It's not. That's not.
But then from there,
but if you want to listen to all poker, you can, tune into your other shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I've done interviews before where I think one interview I did, and this guy even acknowledged, like one of the things you want to do if you're a good interviewer is typically you want your questions to represent 20% of the talking. Ish. Like the 80-20 rule, if you will. I did an interview once with a guy. It was 40 minutes. I wanted to record it. Like, I think I spoke for about 7.
Interesting.
He just kept talking.
Well, people hate that.
Oh, no. I mean, I think he was nervous.
It actually reminds me of when, everyone's trying to hear table talk and commentators talking too much.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And I know that it's really hard. I know. I've been in the booth. I know. And like getting in there at the right time is difficult. But sometimes you want to hear the table more. And especially if like you're at it and there's a lot going on, those conversations are so much more exciting.
It requires, and obviously the bet,
it's a skill.
Are great. What it requires too is a bit of humility to suggest that what's happening at the table is more important than what you want to share.
Yeah.
Because usually, when you're doing poker commentary, you want to share something. Oh my God, she should have bet here because of this and that, or what?
But you're having a really funny conversation.
Yeah, just let it fly. But this is way harder. This is the thing about streamed poker. You don't know when they're going to talk. When we used to do, because I've done commentary before for ESPN and whatnot, like you'd have you'd know the tape and they tell you when they're going to talk.
Yeah.
So you're like, you got about 12 seconds here. Okay, you're in and out. But on a live stream, you don't know. So you stop talking, they start, and then like, oh, okay, you missed it. And then You think they're done, and then you start, and then they start talking.
But then there are people who are just so good at it because they've done it so long, and they just jump in at the perfect moments.
Sometimes, well, often, like less is more.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think I'll tell you the truth, and like I don't even know if you will, but Game of Gold I thought was the most cool concept ever because there was no commentary, none. There was music.
Well, it was a different thing. It's like game showy.
There was music. It wasn't really a game show. It was
felt like that.
There was music. There was drama, but like the commentary just came from the back rooms where people were like going, "Holy shit, why is he calling?" All that kind of stuff. So it was. But I mean, that was an expensive production. I don't know that people always ask me when it's
That's not something that you would just keep recreating. That's something very unique on its own. You know what I mean?
You're still I think it's a show you could do again.
Yeah. I mean, that again. But I'm saying it's not something that everyone's going to do. That's not like you're going to follow that path.
I think the goal for the show really was to get poker creators to sort of think outside the box in terms of content. Because I'll be honest with you.
Has it changed much?
I'm noticing just like cookie cutter, same bullshit with a different set. Like, okay, so it's a tournament, you've got the graphics, you got the commentators, you got them playing hands, you got some break desk on breaks, like.
You know what, I will say though, we have been offered to do all kinds of shows, you and me, like even the Poker Go studio. Like Brent has tried.
Yeah, he comes up with ideas.
Like with really cool ideas that would be great for poker shows. And we've never done it. And they always say, let's do this. And they have all these crazy ideas, and they say we can even have our own ideas and come up with a show that's different. We just need to commit to doing it, and
we
it's
thought
hard
about doing
for
a
us.
poker show at one point.
What?
We created like a little pilot for a poker show we were going to do, me and you.
They have a picture of that. I'll show you. It's really cute.
Yeah,
that was fun. And Brent was going to be the guy over to the side with the laptop, and we yelled things at him. But like it was newsy, right? But
it was poker,
like weekend updatey.
Yeah.
Like that, because that used to be my thing. I used to do that back in the day. Do you remember that?
You do little bits.
I used to get in trouble doing that.
Why?
So I did for Poker Road back in the day, years and years ago. We did like a show, weekend update style, and it was me and Joe Stapleton. And we were pretty brutal. We made fun of people. And what we would do is we would pull things from people's Facebook pages. Because at the time.
I remember this.
That's what you did. We pulled like whatever. People used to type everything on Facebook, what they were feeling, what they were thinking. Yeah. And I would fucking make fun of that so hardcore. Right?
It's times like this when you know who your real friends are.
Yeah. And I'm like. ...
Heart, cry face. Oh, what's wrong?
Yeah. So I went into that hardcore, and then I got a few messages being like angry at me about that.
Yeah, people weren't into that.
Yeah. But it was fun. I don't regret it. I don't give a shit. It was fun. It was comedy. That was the whole thing. I'm never going to apologize for that.
You shouldn't.
No.
For comedy.
And then there was the one, I don't know if you remember this, and I love her, Lizzie Harrison. Do you remember Lizzie?
Of course.
Love Lizzie, by the way. But, Lizzie had that New Jersey accent and like that thing going on. And she always, the jeans she wore were kind of low cut. Like it was the style at the time or whatever. And her tits were always out because they were really big and they were always pushed up. And Stapes said, we should do you imitating her. And it was my studio apartment in LA, the first one I ever had. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And he filmed me dressed like her, talking like her in this East Coast accent. And I think I hurt her feelings for a second doing that because I went hardcore in on this bit.
Yeah, of course you did.
But then she said, you know what? Never mind. It's actually pretty funny.
It's just funny.
Because she's cool. And it just took a second, I think.
Yeah. I mean, people that do, like, whenever people do that, like where they try to, do an imitation of me, sometimes they just not good, but like, I never get offended by it.
You can do it to me. I don't give a shit. But it was just real. I miss doing those things. That's what I miss. And that's why I had so much fun the other night.